Welcome to King County Connects, a program that connects you with the regional issues facing us. I'm Kimberly Hill. The King County Council has a new chairman. Councilmember Bob Ferguson takes the gavel this year. Mr. Ferguson joins us today to talk about the challenges and opportunities for King County in 2010. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, Kimberly.
So there are a lot of things already happening in King County, a lot of challenges ahead of us. Probably the first one is, of course, the recession. The county's been hard hit by the recession. $56 million deficit last year, $93 million the year before that. How does it look for 2010? What can we forecast?
Unfortunately, it looks almost equally grim. And King County is not alone. As you know, the state is facing serious budget challenges. Cities are, and counties across the state are. So it's a phenomenon not unique to King County, obviously, but something that's being faced by local governments all across the country. Unfortunately, you're right that we had to cut about $140, $150 million from our $630 million general fund in the past 2 years. We're facing significant levels of potential cuts for the next 2 years as well, unless there's additional revenues or some other creative options for addressing this crisis.
There's talk that the recession is actually easing. Could that help out the situation?
Absolutely. A part of our revenues come from sales tax. So as the economy goes, in some parts, so goes county's general fund and Metro's budget as well, I should add, which is heavily dependent on the sales tax. So if and when the economy rebounds, that will definitely help King County's bottom line, but still won't solve it. Sales tax is one part of it, property tax is the other, but that is capped by initiative.
As you'd mentioned, the state is also facing a huge budget deficit. How much help could and should we expect from Olympia?
Well, you're right. Olympia has a short session this year in 2010, and they have their own challenges and very significant ones as well. However, one thing we are asking the state legislature as a general matter is that they give us greater flexibility in the use of various funds that we have. A lot of people don't realize that counties are creatures of the state. The state actually can set all sorts of limits on how we spend certain dollars. And in other words, if you get $1 in your Metro till in the morning, that dollar must only be spent for Metro, can't be used for the courts, and vice versa. So we're asking for greater flexibility with our budgets. So just like with your home budget, you want to be able to prioritize with all the dollars you bring in the door. If you're restricted for only certain dollars for home repair or for groceries, sometimes that doesn't give you the flexibility you need when times are tight. That's the kind of flexibility we're asking for from the state legislature.
Is it possible to get that this year during a short session?
I think it's possible because I think the state legislature, as they've grappled their budget challenges, realize the county has significant challenges as well, and we're not the only county asking for this flexibility. All 39 counties have come together, united, to say, hey, we need some help, and I think that has a big impact on the state legislature. So I'm optimistic they'll give us some flexibility that will make a big difference for us.
Are there other alternatives for helping fund services, county services?
Sure. Well, of course, new revenues is the big one. So we're facing in the next 2 years about a $140 million shortfall, again, out of that $630 million general fund. That fund pays for primarily criminal justice. About 73% goes for the courts, the jails, prosecutors, defense attorneys. That's a key part, sheriff deputies. That's a key part of our budget. And again, about 73% goes to those programs. So without additional revenues, frankly, even with the flexibility, we still would have to make significant cuts to those programs, which would have a really devastating impact, frankly, on public safety and the operation of our courts.
So how do you go about prioritizing? Obviously, these services are mandated.
Yes.
The law says you have to do this.
That's exactly right. It goes back to my point earlier when I said, hey, we're creatures of the state. The state lays out what services the county must provide. So the courts, the jails, elections, running elections, those are programs, those are services that counties are required to provide. We're not required, for example, to have parks. We're not required to have human services. Those may be, in many people's eyes, equally as important as those other programs, but they aren't dictated by state law. So we've tried to be creative. Our parks are funded primarily through a separate levy approved by the voters. Some human services dollars are approved by levy, the Veterans and Human Services levy. But the general fund, the core key part of our general fund, is and frankly must be criminal justice because it's a mandate from the state government that we provide those services and serve them well.
So what about other creative funding services? Maybe the private sector?
Yes, and so we look at all these options in terms of trying to come up with creative options. One thing that's worked well for us, and sometimes when you have a crisis, that tends to focus the mind and people get creative. A good example is in public health, which is funded out of our general fund. I didn't mention that. And we have public health clinics. We have many people in this county who lack health insurance. It's a big issue nationally, but it impacts people right here in King County. We have public health clinics where people can go for assistance, but we've been faced with closure of many of those clinics because of budget constraints. One success story is up in my district, up near Bothell. We have a public health center that was slated for closure. We resisted the closure, asked public health to come up with some creative options, and they did. They're partnering with a group called a group up there in North King County that provides public health as well. We're going to partner with that group and provide the services, and it'll save significant dollars to keep that public health clinic open and serving people who need the help. Frankly, we're optimistic that can be a model throughout the county to keep public health options open for people who need it throughout our region.
There's some kind of a model also with parks, being able to go back to some of the incorporated
That's right.
areas.
That's right. We're looking at combining with local jurisdictions, private partners, anything that is an option that we're willing to look at this point to keep parks open, which are a vital part for all neighborhoods and all communities. We want to keep those parks open, but we're reaching out to our partners throughout the region to see what ideas they have as well to keep those parks open.
So is 2010 pretty much about trying to settle the budget deficit?
I mean, someone asked me the other day, hey Bob, what are the 3 top priorities for King County this year? And I said budget, budget, and budget. And while we do many important things, when you're facing the level of shortfall that we're facing, that is the priority. And really that encompasses virtually all the critical aspects of county government. If our budget situation doesn't get addressed, that does impact public safety, that does impact public health, that does impact human services. It impacts our elections department. I think I was reading in Hawaii recently where they have a jurisdiction there that simply can't run a special election that they need to have to fill a vacancy in a congressional office because they don't have the money to run it. It's literally at that point. So we don't want to get to that point, but in order to avoid that, we all have to work together. And frankly, one aspect of this crisis that's been, I think, a positive is I've seen everybody getting together, working with the sheriff, the judges, the prosecutor. People are getting together, coming up with ideas to see how we can go forward with a united front to address the very real challenges we face right now.
Brainstorming and working
Absolutely
together.
right, yes.
A lot of challenges. What about opportunities that you see for 2010?
So opportunities, I guess I would go back to the idea that one tries to stay optimistic even when times are tough, right? And I don't think anyone runs for office for the opportunity to cut $140 million of critical programs, right? However, it is true that when you have a crisis, there is always an opportunity. It's a bit of a cliche, but there is truth to that there's a chance to look for a new partnership, new ways of doing business. I do believe that King County needs to be more reform-minded. I think our executive shares that vision. I think the council shares that. And whether it's new partnerships with public health, looking for opportunities to partner with local folks here in the county or with our state legislators, that's what we need to be focused on. So I believe we've really made the cuts that were difficult but had to be made the past 2 years. As you mentioned, over $100 million in cuts. But I will say our general fund now is really down to the bone, and we cannot sustain that measure of cuts any longer without directly impacting people in a very adverse way, a way that they'll feel in their neighborhoods if we have to make those cuts in the next 2 years.
So creative opportunities.
Absolutely right.
And partnerships working together.
Yes.
Well, thank you for being with us today, and we wish you luck in the year 2010.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us for King County Connects. If you'd like to contact us or check out our programming schedule, visit us online at kingcounty.gov/KCTV.